Yeah, so we've discussed the big UK fights this weekend. Another one that I haven't really got around to making a video to yet was actually the Andre Ward versus Sullivan Barrera fight that took place Saturday night, Sunday morning. What were your thoughts having seen that fight? Was it vintage Andre Ward for you?
For me, not vintage. I'd say slightly different. For me, I don't know if it was because Barrera was very good in the first few rounds. I had about 2-2 going into the first, 1-1 going into the second round, and then the third round knockdown came.
Yeah.
And I think Barrera kind of went into his shell after that, and he didn't really want it. Not that Andre Ward's a big puncher, but I think he was very wary that Andre Ward could pick him off, be very accurate, and his timing is splendid. So, for me, Barrera kind of just set off, and you wouldn't expect that from a big, tall, strong light heavyweight, especially an Abel Sanchez fighter. Like, he was standing off and letting Ward pick him off here and there. After the third round, I'd say Ward just ran away with it. And it kind of represented it in the scorecards. It was like 117 or 109 or something like that. So, for me, it was a good performance. A good performance against a good opponent, actually. A very decent opponent. But, I mean, against Kovalev, if you boxers like that, I mean, that's a tough fight. We've spoke about it several times, online and offline. But I'd pick Kovalev still just. It'd be very, very tight. I think Ward would pick up his game immensely against someone like Sergei Kovalev. But for me, Kovalev just got a bit more. And the thing is, his punching power is devastating. It's not just his punching power, but the little subtleties he was doing. I mean, but Bernard Hopkins tried to spoil, and even he couldn't do it. And he got shut out almost 12-0 against Kovalev. So, I mean, it's very, very tough. Against the other light heavyweight contenders and champions, I think he'd do a lot better, but we can come on to that after. What do you think of Andre Ward's performance and where he goes from here?
It was interesting watching him. I mean, it reminded me that the thing about Andre Ward is, in terms of raw attributes, he doesn't stand out in any particular area. He's not the hardest puncher, he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest. What he is just so solid in every area. And he's got the potential to fight with numerous different styles. He's got the potential to, really adapt and evolve his game dependent on the mission in front of him. And I actually thought we saw him box a bit more from the outside in this fight. It's still typical Andre Ward. He's able to mix it up. He's able to fight a bit dirty if needs be. But he was perhaps spoiling less than I'd expect. And he was boxing a bit more. I thought his reactions were still on point. For a man, I guess he's been inactive. He's getting a bit older, but his reactions defensively were still there. He's still very defensively sound. He takes very little punishment, and when he actually does take a punch, he tends to take it very well, in the sense that he rides it and he positions his body very nicely. He's still there. Sullivan Barrera, to me, looks like a decent fighter, but a guy who was out of his depth, and this came too soon, really. Andre Ward is, really, really solid. But, in looking at the performance, it's hard to look at it and think, that was exceptional. I'd say it was a 7 out of 10 performance. He did the job. It was a strong, solid, dominant win. But it probably wasn't the performance that made Kovalev go to sleep frightened and wanting to avoid the fight. It's a tough one, but I guess Andre Ward is never the kind of fighter who's going to do that to you, is he?
No, definitely not. I mean, the height and weight difference looked miles apart. I mean, Andre Ward looked like literally a super middleweight stepping up to light heavyweight, and Sullivan Barrera looked like, almost just over a heavyweight, cutting down to light heavyweight. He looked huge in there, absolutely ripped and huge. Obviously, we know boxing is not all about muscles. Prime example was Tim Bradley, but I mean, for me, where Ward goes from here, obviously he has the Kovalev fight. They say end of 2016. Don't think it will be end of 2016. I'd say early 2017, possibly the same time it is around this time. So, March, April time for me. It's hard. I mean, Kovalev for me is just on another level. So any of the other light heavyweights at the moment, not including Ward at this moment, for me, he smashes on Adonis Stevenson in a couple of rounds. Adonis Stevenson doesn't have the greatest chin, and he's there or thereabouts in terms of tactical boxing. He's not. He's a very, very predictable offensive fighter as well. Jürgen Bremer, I'd like to see him. I'd like to see Jürgen Bremer in the mix. I think Bremer's very, very underrated, very good boxer, and he seems to take a punch well, and he can punch a bit as well. And very good boxing skills. I'd actually like to see that fight, Andre Ward versus someone like Jürgen Bremer. See how he fares against him, or even a Fonfara, someone like that. Yeah. Someone who's actually been established, and he's not a prospect level. He's been established. He's at the weight. He's very big, strong for the weight, and he's a solid operator. Even a Nathan Cleverly might be a good gauge of how you'd fare against the Kovalevs of the world. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't pick any of those fighters above Ward. Probably not. But it gives you a good gauge and a good indicator as to how he may fare and how he may deal. Maybe even a past opponent of Kovalev, a very solid one. I mean, it might just give him something that we can have a better gauge on. I mean, Barrera, he was undefeated. You could probably say he's still a baby in terms of. At light heavyweight, he's a prospect. Maybe even a Unieski Gonzalez, someone like that, John Pascal. Those sort of opponents would be really good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the two names that seem like a good fit to me are Fonfara and Pascal. But having said that, maybe Fonfara actually, because Pascal, people remember him getting destroyed by Kovalev. Andre Ward probably wouldn't destroy him in the same fashion, which may look like an unfavourable comparison. He may be better off to face Fonfara and try and do a better job on Fonfara than perhaps Adonis Stevenson did. I think Fonfara would be a good test. He's a strong guy, very fit, quite tough, quite durable, quite rugged. And he's someone who pushes the pace. He's someone who would really come to fight. He's someone who would come to, force the action. And whilst I think Andre Ward would certainly make him look silly in a boxing sense, and really look leagues above him in a pure boxing fight or matchup, I think that Fonfara would give him a good, hard, tough 12 rounds. In a light heavyweight division, and then the Kovalev fight is a more realistic possibility. And do you know what? I keep changing my mind on that fight. I cannot make a decision. I do just feel, however, that I know this is like a slightly naive thing to say. Andre Ward just has an air of invincibility around him. He is so solid and he can adapt to people's games so well. And I just wonder whether Kovalev can be spoiled against and, can be possibly out-hustled. People say Kovalev's got game-changing knockout power, and that's certainly true. He does. But let's be honest, Bernard Hopkins, who was a man in his 50s, went the distance with Kovalev. So I think you'd have to back a prime peak Andre Ward to not only go the distance but go a bit further than Bernard Hopkins and cause a few more issues maybe.
It's hard. I mean, I change my mind here and there, but I do tend to go Kovalev just. I mean, the performance against Hopkins, he did knock him out, and people say he has a devastating power, but for me, I think he boxed a lot more in that fight. He didn't go looking for the knockout. And in the 12th round, when he actually did put the pressure on Hopkins, he hurt him. So, obviously it's all well and good saying you have a lot of power and that sort of stuff. But let's look what he's done to, previous opponents. And against Cleverly, he was boxing and then he took him out in 4 rounds. He's done it to a lot of opponents. Pascal, first fight, 8 rounds. Second fight, 7 rounds. it's a continuing trend. He's boxing, but he's boxing smart. I mean, Blake Caparello, we spoke about the other day with Andre Durrell. He's facing him next. He knocked him down. He came back, he boxed, and he just had a spite in his eye and he took him out. It's not just about power. Kovalev is actually a very underrated boxer for my money, and I think Andre Ward can spoil and can hold and cause more issues than the alien did. But for me, Kovalev, he can adapt as well. He's a very underrated boxer, very, very, very good. We know about his amateur record as well. It's decent. He's faced the likes of Golovkin, Korobov, those sort of people. So he's used to this sort of style, I think. Pro game is obviously different, but style-wise, he's facing top elite fighters, and he's doing really well. So I'd go with Kovalev, as I said, just like 1 or 2 points, nothing wider than that. It'd be a very, very, very close fight. Wouldn't be surprised if either wins, and yeah, it's a fight I'm looking forward to more than anything. But as well, on a side note, I'd just like to see where you think the contenders will go at in the 175 division. I mean, obviously you have those two at the top of the division, Stevenson as well. But then you have Barrera, who holds the regular WBA title. How do you think things will go for him? Elido Alvarez is there. Isaac Chilemba's there. So you have some decent guys there.
Yeah.
How do you think they all fare?
I've always liked Elido Alvarez, actually. I've seen him fight quite a few times, and I've always thought he was really, really tidy and had the potential to make into a top-class fighter. I just don't know if looking at him, he's got... I know he had a hard fight against Chilemba, I think. I just don't know if looking at him, he's got the upside to his game of a Ward or a Kovalev. I doubt that he has. As for Barrera, I've heard a lot of rumours of a Barrera Cleverly fight, and as you may know, I'm slightly biased as I'm a big Nathan Cleverly fan, but that's a fight we've been talking about, on 3 or 4 separate occasions now, and probably over the course of 4 or 5 years, and I'd like to see that one happen. Barrera, he's a difficult opponent to beat. He knows how to fight. He's tough. He's skilled. I just wonder whether he's been fighting lesser opposition on his home turf for too long, and I would slightly lean to Nathan Cleverly in that fight.
Interesting. I'd say, definitely I agree with the opponents with Jürgen Barrera. I'd even say Arthur Abraham. People say Arthur Abraham's always camped in Germany, and that sort of. I'd even say Arthur Abraham has actually faced better opposition than Jürgen Barrera.
Yeah, definitely.
Barrera resembles someone like Felix Sturm, who's actually for mediocre opposition and always got decisions going his way, even close fights going his way, or robbery decisions going his way, and kind of resembles someone like Felix Sturm. Jürgen Barrera for me is a very solid fighter. I like him, I like his style. I pick him to beat Cleverly. I disagree with your prediction. Obviously, I know you're a big Cleverly fan.
Yeah.
But that's a very, very tight fight. Don't get me wrong as well. Very good fight. I'd love to see it. I think Barrera would win just on points. He would nick it on points. I wouldn't see any knockout here. Can't see Barrera troubling him power-wise. We know he's got decent power, but I don't think he would trouble him power-wise. I think Cleverly's got a really good chin as well. That would be a really good fight. That's a fight I'm interested to see. I know Elido Alvarez is actually the WBC mandatory for Stevenson, so I don't know how that fight would go. We've seen a bit of Alvarez. Obviously, we've seen Stevenson. I'd actually pick Alvarez to win, I'll be honest. Although there were a lot of holes in his game against Isaac Chilemba. I thought Chilemba won that fight by about 2 rounds. But that's just my opinion, obviously. I think Alvarez is there. You get a slippery opponent. I think, a slippery opponent will work their way around Alvarez. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think they might be friends, though, or like campmates. So I'm not 100% sure whether that fight would happen, which
maybe.
is unfortunate, because Alvarez he's no spring chicken either.
Yeah, he's in his early 30s even.
Yeah, so he needs to get a move on, really, because he still isn't in the public eye too much.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, not a big name or anything like that.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Good stuff. We'll wrap this one up, Jet, and move on to the next section. Thanks for watching, guys.